All right, everyone. For our second session of the workshop block today, we have Caleb Morris, who is one of our chapter visitation associates from the SED and is also a counselor in training. So with that, I'll hand it right over to Caleb.
Thank you, Allison. And thank you, everyone, for being here to chit chat with me about personal branding. Just to give you a little bit more background about myself, I actually work in higher education as a instructor and an advisor in the School of Public Health. So I regularly talk with students about their academic progression as well as how they're preparing for their careers. And I teach classes around career exploration and career management. So this idea of personal branding is something that I talk about with students a lot as it relates to their career development. And it's a topic that I'm really passionate about because when I was a student, I didn't have a lot of conversations about how to develop my personal brand. And so when it came time to go on the job search, go on the graduate school search, I didn't really have a lot of understanding of how to talk about myself and my experiences, and really who I was and how who I was beneficial for whatever job or position I was applying for. So I feel like this is a really important topic that doesn't get talked about enough. So I'm really excited to talk with you about this idea of personal branding. So this is an overview of different topics, and it's all really grounded in this idea that you have to be your own best advocate. So at a certain point, you may have people who are advocating for you, but at a certain point, you have to be able to articulate who you are, your brand, and be able to articulate that and share that with other people so that they see the same value in you that you see, in yourself. And so, with that in mind, the different topics that we're going to go through is how to identify your personal compass. I call it your visa, your values, interests, strengths, and abilities. How to identify that and articulate that to other people. Knowing what your why is, and how to articulate that through a personal mission statement. Looking at your online identity and making sure that you are presenting yourself in a very positive manner. We're going to talk about elevator pitches, which is 30, 40 second intro statement of who you are and what value you hold. We're going to talk about how to be assertive with your communication to others, so that you're not coming off as being too passive or too aggressive. We're going to talk about networking and how to build a network of people around you who can give you really great support and advice. And finally, we're going to talk about how to translate TBS into your personal brand. So we don't have a lot of time to be able to cover all of these topics. These are topics that I can spend a whole class period in my classes talking about. So we are going to go over the highlights of each of these different topics, but something that I'm excited about is you'll have access to a resource folder that goes a little bit more in depth into different topics and has different activities and things that you can do to really bring these topics to life. If you ever have any questions as we go throughout the presentation, feel free to, unmute and ask your question, pop it in the chat. Please don't hesitate to, if you have a question, shout it out. Okay, so as members of TBS, we are very familiar with the concept of a compass and how important a compass is to how we navigate TBS and the world around us. And so when I talk about what your personal compass is, I'm talking about values, interests, strengths, and abilities, which can be really similar concepts, but really have different applications in your life. I have a quote about what values are from Brene Brown. And Dr. Brown talks about values as ways of being or beliefs, and beliefs that really shape how we move about the world. So your values are things that are really important to you that you demonstrate through your intentions, words, thoughts, behaviors. Um, Interests are just anything that engages your mind, engages your heart, engages your hand. And they can be, personal interests, professional interests, but these are just the things that keep your attention and engage you. Um, for strengths, I have a quote from a guy by the name of Marcus Buckingham that I really like. A strength is anything that makes you feel strong. A strength are things that strengthen you. And strengths are different than abilities, which abilities are just different skills that you have. Like the dictionary.com definition says, power, capacity to do or act, competence that you have. And strengths are different than abilities in that strengths make you feel strong, but abilities are kind of aggressively neutral. You may like a certain ability that you have, you may dislike an ability that you have, you may be frustrated about the different abilities that you have, but they are distinct from strengths in that they're just very neutral aspects of yourself. So that's an overview of what values, interests, strengths, and abilities are. And it's really important to define these in the context of your personal brand, because these are like the building blocks of who you are, and what components of yourself can either, make you attractive or make you, I guess, not attractive, make you not someone that people are wanting to gravitate towards. So your personal compass helps you with being able to attract others or put others off from you. And so when we talk about visa, the first step is to be able to identify all of these things. And there's a lot of different resources that you have at your disposal to identify your values, interests, strengths, and abilities, because they aren't always obvious. They aren't always the first thing that you are thinking of. Sometimes you have to put intentional thought work into identifying these different aspects of yourself. So there's different inventories out there, different online assessments that you can do that are free, that can help you identify, especially your values and your strengths, and the different aspects of your personality. Um, but you don't necessarily have to use kind of a third party platform. Sometimes you can just put thought work, making a list of things that you enjoy doing. And that can be really helpful for identifying your interests, and just like putting in some thought work and some reflective work. Also thinking about how your visa can apply to your career, your personal life, your relationships with others. Just putting in some of that reflective time is a really important part of this identification process. And then finally, seeking feedback from trusted peers, mentors, and other people in your life, who can, again, give you really valuable feedback about who you are, and how they observe that you navigate the world. And then once you've identified these different things, it's important to, especially, as young people, to cultivate them through experience. So when you think about your college experience, thinking about different internships, leadership roles, volunteer opportunities, personal and professional organizations, that you can tap into to be able to get different experiences that help clarify your visa, and how it shapes your interactions, personally and professionally. Um, Informational interviewing or making intentional connections with people, to help understand what other people's experiences are, and that can help inform uh, your thoughts about your experiences. We're going to talk about informational interviewing a little bit more, in more depth later. And then, getting experience in the form of internships, part-time jobs, shadowing, to kind of understand more about different occupations that you're interested in. But the first step with personal branding, is identifying your visa and then pursuing experiences to help cultivate your visa. And then, like I mentioned, you'll have access to different resources and different resources that I have in a folder for you that relate to Visa. There's a values inventory. There's links to free strengths and personality assessments, and then there are different reflective journal prompts that I have. And I think these can be really helpful with this process of identifying your Visa here. And then knowing your why is kind of the next step with personal branding. And I'm going to take you on a journey through different quotes. You see the different arrows, and we're going to start with a quote from Diana Ross, um, where she says, "You can't just sit there and wait for people to give you that golden dream. You've got to get out there and make it happen for yourself." And the reason why I want to start with that, in my job, I work with a lot of, younger students, first year students in college. And something that I've observed with younger students is their kind of worldview and their dreams are often defined by other people, maybe their parents or teachers or coaches that they've had throughout their life. And they haven't always identified what their dreams are for themselves. And so that's why I wanted to start with that Diana Ross quote. You really have to define these things for yourself and not let other people define who you are. Because at the end of the day, like you're living your life for yourself, not for other people. Um, and so moving from that quote, once you've identified your why, um, I love this. Don't hit the snooze button any longer. As someone who struggles with waking up in the morning every day, I always want to hit that snooze button, but hitting the snooze button is just me delaying living my life. So once you've found your why, you have your motivation for, what is going to get you up and going every single day. And then the next quote that I feel like is really important with understanding your why it's a Bruce Lee quote, always be yourself, express yourself, have faith in yourself. Don't go out and look for a successful personality and duplicate it, which I feel like speaks to the importance of being authentically you. And so always being yourself. It's important to have role models and kind of people that you can model behavior after. But at the end of the day, it's really important to be authentic and be yourself and not try to be someone else. And then I have a quote from Oprah. Um, the way to choose happiness is to follow what's right and real and the truth for you. You can never be happy living someone else's dream. Live your own dream, and you will for sure know the meaning of happiness. Which again, I feel like speaks to that importance of living your life, being authentic to who you are, and not other people's expectations for you. And then finally, a quote from Simon Sinek. When you start with why, those who believe what you believe are drawn to you for very personal reasons, which brings all these quotes back to this idea of personal branding. Once you are living your authentic truth and you're clear about your why and your motivations, being able to articulate that helps other people, helps you attract yourself to other people. And so knowing your why helps you be able to start making intentional connections with other people, and other people will be drawn to your sense of confidence and your sense of self. So, you know, after identifying your visa, the next step is having a solid understanding of what your why is for, being in this world. And once you've identified that and are able to articulate that, your visa and your why will become the core part of what your personal brand is. Okay. And so I mentioned, being able to articulate these things, and that's where a personal mission statement can be really handy. And so I have a little template for a personal mission statement. Because I value X, Y, and Z and have an interest in A, B, and C, I'll use a specific set of strengths and abilities to um, do something for a particular group of people so that I can make this kind of impact in the world. So that is a template for a personal mission statement. It's just one of many different templates, but it's one that I like to use with students because it's a way to make actionable your visa and your why. Because, in this template, it includes values, interests, strengths, and abilities. And it also includes action, audience, and impact, which I feel are ways that you can make your why actionable. And so whenever you're identifying what your why is, you can think about that through the lens of what impact you want to make on the world, what people you want to have to be impacted by, what people do you want their lives to be affected by the impact that you're making, and then what specific actions you can take to have that impact and effect on whoever. And so whenever you're thinking about that, keystone questions can come into play, which keystone questions are um, deeply established questions we ask ourselves in the attempt to become our best selves. That's a little definition of what a keystone question is. So these are just really powerful questions that you can ask yourself to get more clarity and understanding about what impact you want to make on the world. And so there are a lot of different keystone questions out there. Three that I included because they relate into the personal mission statement template are: what impact do I want to make on the world? What people or groups whose lives I want to improve as a result of my impact? And then what actions do I want to take to make my impact? Again, being able to articulate all of these things, well, being able to think about and then articulate all of these different things can help you create a personal mission statement. And then once you have that statement created, you can start to share that with other people as a way to help them understand, what your purpose is and what you want to offer the world. And so, my personal mission statement um, that's related to my career, because I have different kinds of missions in life. And one that's related to my career is because I value education and have an interest in personal growth. I will use my relationship building and strategic thinking strengths to support college students as they navigate and optimize their college experience. Um, and so that is my personal mission statement for work. And it helps motivate me every day, knowing because I value education and I know the wonderful lifelong impacts that having an education has. That keeps me going is helping students be able to complete their education so that they can experience all those wonderful benefits. And so all of that came from a lot of thought work that I put in to be able to have that kind of clarity about what my career purpose is. Uh, so, personal mission statement is a short sentence or phrasing that you can use to be able to share your values, interests, strengths, and abilities, the why that you want to have that keeps you motivated, keeps you going, to be able to share that with other people. Um, and as you are identifying what your personal mission statement is, there are different resources that you can use, a meaningful work statement activity that I have linked, and then an article that goes through how you can identify keystone questions that you can ask yourself to help then be able to build a personal mission statement. So I feel like those are the first steps with personal branding, is having that clarity and understanding of who you are and what impact you want to make with your life. Um, and so with that, I just wanted to pause and see if anyone had any questions or comments, things that they wanted to share in the chat, or, you can unmute and share as well. Allison, anything popping up in the chat?
Nope, all's quiet in the chat so far.
All right. So with that, we can move on to other aspects of your personal branding, and that's maintaining a positive online identity. Um, you know, for years, we've known that employers, schools are looking students up and making employment admissions decisions based on what they observe, who you are is, what they observe about who you are based on what you are putting out there on social media and things of that nature. So it's important to think about and try to craft what your online identity is going to be. And so, thinking about what your social media says about you, either positively or negatively. And so, different steps that you can take for helping to take a look at your online identity is, looking yourself up, you know, doing a Google search on you. So whenever someone Googles Caleb Morris, what are the different things that pops up? Um, Having an inventory about all your different social media accounts, deleting ones that you don't use, so that you kind of understand, where you are. I am part of the generation where like, social media became this really big thing. And it seemed like every year there was a new social platform. Um, and that's something that I got into is like just wanting to join all of these things, but then never using them. If you're not using a platform, just go ahead and delete it so that, there's not things out there, especially that are older that you might have forgotten about that can say something about who you are positively or negatively. Um, of course, keeping track of privacy settings and making sure those are set up how you want to on your socials, always keeping things professional and up to date and deleting anything that you don't want out there. That doesn't mean it's deleted forever, but it's gone in the immediate, I guess we can say. On your socials, being able to share your different achievements. And then finally, using this think framing before you post, making sure that everything that you're sharing is true, helpful, inspiring, necessary, and kind. Um, so that's another really important step of about your personal branding is just what your personal brand is online and what you project about yourself through the different social media accounts that you use. Um, and especially when we look in a professional context, LinkedIn is a really important part of your professional identity because it's the leading social networking platform for professionally for careers. And so, even as a student, even though you may not be active on a job search or anything like that, you can still go ahead and create your LinkedIn to be able to start developing that professional online presence. LinkedIn is a way to find different jobs and internships, connect with other people in occupations that you want to be in one day. And it's also a place of learning because there are different articles, there are different posts that people make that just help you understand more about the profession that you would like to go into. And so I have linked here um, the students page on the LinkedIn website, which has a lot of really great tips and strategies for how to get started with LinkedIn, even as a student. Um, and like I mentioned, having that LinkedIn presence helps you kind of get started with um, the basis for your profession or what career that you want to go into in terms of being able to connect with other people, get more information about different careers that you want to go into, and starting to, like I mentioned, meet up with different people or make those connections. And so, the next aspect of career, or excuse me, the next aspect of personal branding, we talked about kind of establishing who you are and being able to articulate that. I mentioned about your online identity. This next step is your elevator pitch, which is again a short statement or phrasing, 30 to 40-second introduction to who you are as it relates to your career. And so why it's called an elevator pitch is it's this idea if you were trying to apply for a job at a company and you walked into the building of that company and walked into the elevator and happened to share the elevator with the CEO of that company, what would you tell them on that elevator ride to get them to hire you? And so that is where the phrasing elevator pitch comes from. And you can use elevator pitches in a lot of different ways in interviews, which I know is one of the sessions that is coming up later today. The first question that you're always going to get in an interview is tell me about yourself, and you can use your elevator pitch to be able to respond. Um, Something that is a really common networking tool for college students is different career fairs that are hosted at your colleges and universities. And whenever you're talking with employers, you can share your elevator pitch to make that initial connection with them. So having an elevator pitch ready is one of the best things that you can do to uh, be able to make that career connection with um, employers and other people. So there is a 4-step model for crafting your elevator pitch. Start by having that positive introduction to yourself, providing a summary of what you do. So, as a student, you can talk about obviously being a student and some of the different things that you're involved with that can help you stand out amongst other people. Explaining what you want, whether it be I'm trying to get an internship or a job, or I'm trying to just make a positive connection in a field that I want to go into. And then finally finishing with a call to action, kind of articulating what you want whoever is receiving this message to do based off of the information that you're providing them. So again, whether it be, I'd love to have a follow-up conversation with you at a later date to understand more about your career journey, or I'd love to be able to access any kind of internship or job opportunities that you're posting out there. Finishing with that call to action to prompt the other person to realize kind of what your goals are with you making a connection with them. And so, with that 4-step model in mind, I do have a elevator pitch resource that you'll have access to that kind of goes step by step how to start crafting your elevator pitch. And again, an elevator pitch is not meant to be, 10 minutes long. It's a short, quick introduction. So being able to hit on these different talking points to start a conversation with someone is really important. And I feel like with like elevator pitches and networking and things of that nature, it's really important to be assertive with your communication and not overly passive or aggressive. And this is something that I struggled with a lot. I was overly passive because I didn't want to come off as being really aggressive, and I didn't really understand when I was a student how to be assertive and how to communicate who I am and what I want in a way that is still approachable and friendly and respectful to other people. And so, like I said, sometimes I would be like a little too passive, and I would get passed up on different opportunities. So I had to like learn how to be more assertive. And I think the first step with that goes back to your visa and your why, having a really clear understanding of who you are and where you're coming from, so that you can then be able to understand your positionality as it relates to whoever is around you. So that confidence from that comes from knowing who you are, I feel like is an important part of assertive communication. And then on the screen, you see all of these different practices like using I statements, having an open mind, having that emotional intelligence. Um, those are ways to be actionable with your assertive communication. But I feel like this is just a skill that, again, is not necessarily taught in school or anything like that, but is so important with having positive relations with other people. Um, and so, whenever you are at a networking event and trying to meet a lot of different people, whenever you're delivering that elevator pitch, whenever you're trying to make it clear with the other person kind of what you want out of them, um, whether it be, a follow-up conversation or a job opportunity, what have you. Again, being assertive and not overly aggressive with that is going to be very important. Um, and I have an article that you have as a resource, how to be more assertive at work. And I feel like the principles of that article, can be applied even in your role right now in TBS. And certainly, whenever you're having those professional experiences like internships and things of that nature, as you prepare for your career, that article is, even if you don't have a job right now, that article is still really useful just for your everyday. And so, again, I wanted to pause just to see if there were any questions or comments.
I actually had two thoughts or questions. They're two different ones, though, Caleb. So, thinking back about elevator pitches, I know thinking back to like the pre-COVID world, it was very I mean, not gonna say it's so common you get into an elevator with the CEO, but having more of that, you're at an in-person networking event, or there's that face-to-face time where the traditional elevator pitch would come in handy. Can you share a bit how you think this has shifted in the post-COVID, more virtual and like remote world, and any thoughts you have about how if there's a different approach for them here or strategies?
Yeah, of course. So, you may not be getting into elevators with people because you may be applying for remote work positions, or you may not even step foot at the place that you'll work if it is in person until you have landed that job and you're in onboarding. But elevator pitches are still really important. Having that articulated in your mind, because you never know just when you're walking about the world who you'll meet. And so having an elevator pitch ready means that you know what to say whenever an opportunity comes up. You may just be in the park and look over and see someone that works at a company that you're interested in. They're just living their life. But having that elevator pitch ready can help you with being able to approach people really quickly. And an elevator pitch is something that you'll want to be able to articulate um, uh, verbally, but you'll also want to be able to articulate your elevator pitch certainly in writing. And so when you're thinking about things like cover letters and things of that nature, your elevator pitch can inform your cover letter. It can inform even on a Zoom kind of speed dating platform, a professional mixer or something like that. You can use your elevator pitch in those kind of virtual settings. Even though things are in a lot more hybrid space now, pitches are still really valuable for being able to have that quick introduction to make a positive first impression with someone. Does that answer your question?
Of course it does. Thank you.
And then, was there another question you had?
There was, but I think I realized that it's more of a connection between yours and what I assume is going to come up in the next presentation, so I'm going to hold it.
Thank you. Um, so the next kind of um, area of personal branding that I wanted to talk about is networking and how to build your professional network. Um, and again, your brand is going to be really important because that's how you introduce yourself and build relationships with other people. And having that confidence that comes from knowing who you are helps you with being able to make those connections. But then you also want to think intentionally about who exactly is in your network and the different roles that they occupy in your life. And so I really like this framework because it kind of teases out the different people who are in your life and the different roles that they have. Um, you know, in your life. So you have advisors, which are people that you may go to for specialized information. I'm an academic advisor, so I have students who come to me with questions about how to navigate their degree program and different policies and processes on the campus that I work. Um, but you may have financial advisors. I'm an academic advisor, so I know a lot about curriculum, but I don't know a lot about financial aid. And even in my personal life, budgeting and things of that nature is still an area I need growth with. I need an advisor for. So you have your advisors who you go to for specialized information. You have your protectors who are people who are able to provide a safe space for you, a really supportive environment. Maybe your protectors are people from your family. Maybe, mental health counselors, things of that nature. Protectors can look a lot of different, can be a lot of different, can look in a lot of different ways. I'm not sure why I'm having a brain fart for what I'm trying to say there, but there's a lot of different types of protectors. You have your coaches who can help you with motivation. So whenever you're feeling stuck, who is a person that you can go to start feeling unstuck. um, your connectors, which are going to be a really important part of your professional network. These are the people who can help you get access, get connected to different people and opportunities to help you progress in your career. So very important. Challengers, who are people who can help you have a different perspective or think in a different kind of way. Adaptability, as you can imagine, is one of the top career skills these days. Being adaptable, being able to thrive in a lot of different kinds of environments. And so your challengers, I feel like, are people that can help you be adaptable because they can help you shift your thinking. Your advocators, who are people who can talk you up in spaces that you're not present, which, similar to connectors, I feel like are really important to have in your professional network. And finally, you have your cheerleaders, who are people who can help give you positive vibes, who can hype you up, who can uplift you. So when you're thinking about your professional network, identify the different people that are already there, and then identify what gaps you have. So maybe you have a lot of advisors and protectors, but you don't have a lot of advocators and connectors. So, think about what's there and what's missing. And then when it comes to networking, it's a process. So these are different strategies that you can employ as you are networking, as you are seeking to build that professional network. On the left, reaching out to the right people. So whether it be researching a company that you're interested in working with and understanding, kind of who are the power players at that company. Um, uh, and you can reach out to them using LinkedIn. You can reach out to them using different networking events. There's a lot of different ways to reach out to people, but it's important to actually make that effort to reach out. Attending different networking events. Again, these are spaces where you can put your face out there, whether they be in person or whether they be virtually through Zoom. You'll want to, put yourself out there, and because no one will know who you are uh, if you're not putting yourself in different spaces to let them know who you are. Strengthening your presence on different social media sites like LinkedIn. Uh, that again helps you cultivate that online identity. And it's another space that you can put yourself out there. Um, and then it's not enough to just try to make connections with a lot of different people, but you'll want to continue those connections. So that keeping in touch and investing in relationships is really important, because, I'm very forgetful. I meet a lot of different people and may not always be able to remember the details of who they are if I don't have a sustained relationship or connection with them. So that's why it's important to be able to follow up and continue those relationships, not just make a lot of initial connections, but keep those connections moving forward. Um, and then other strategies, again, like I was talking about in the previous slide, identifying the different um, existing relationships that you have, who's already in your network, and what the gap areas are, who would be really good people to have in your network to be able to progress forward with your goals. Attending different events like career fairs, conferences, even social mixers and things of that nature, workshops, getting out there in your community. You never know, again, like I mentioned earlier, you never know who you're going to meet, and you never know what kind of connection that you can make, even at an event that may not be related at all to your career goals or things of that nature. So putting yourself out there is important because you never know what opportunities can come. Um, um, really beefing up your online presence through LinkedIn, following different people, following organizations, making intentional connections, and then scheduling informational interviews. This is probably like my number one piece of career advice that I have. Um, Understanding other people's journeys can be really important context for understanding what your own path or what your own journey is going to be like. And it's important to remember um, the diversity of experiences that people can have. Because if you're modeling your journey based on only one person's journey, you can end up in a lot of pitfalls with that. Because, something may have worked out for someone that doesn't work out for you. People have different, social identities and things of that nature that shape their experiences and how they navigate the world. So it's important to understand a lot of different people's experiences, and you can do that through informational interviews, which is intentionally reaching out to someone, using your elevator pitch. And your personal mission statement to kind of introduce yourself so that they know who you are. And in the elevator pitch, when it talks about establishing what you want from them, being very direct about, I'd like to have coffee with you. I have some questions that I'm hoping you'll be able to answer. Um, so informational interviews are really helpful for making connections, and having people talk about themselves because a lot of people love talking about themselves. And through that conversation, you're developing that connection and you are getting to know someone else's journey, which is really important context for your own journey. And then, like I mentioned earlier, always being authentic and can be really easy to kind of fall into that um, trap of feeling like you're being overly schmoozy or overly aggressive. So being authentic with who you are, people will see that and feed off of that. And then I really like the last point, give as much as you get, because especially as a young professional, you're asking a lot, like you are trying to get as much as you can. And so thinking about how you can give back as well, I think is really important, because um, you know, it makes sure that the relationships that you're developing are mutually beneficial, they're reciprocal, it's not one-sided. So these are different networking strategies, and like I mentioned, I have some resources that you'll have access to help understanding networking a little bit more. Just checking the time here. Okay. Um, so before I move into kind of this last section, I again wanted to pause. Um, oh, I see a piece of feedback in the chat. I think laying everything out like that makes it easier to see that a lot of us already have people. We just need to talk to them. Yep. It can feel when you're, just starting out in your career, it can feel very, very isolating and alone, but you do already have people in your network. Tau Beta Sigma is a part of your network. Certainly the different people on your campuses are already in your network. Um, Family and friends that you have that you've had, all your life are a part of your network. It can feel like you're alone, but you're not alone. And so thank you for bringing up that point, Ash. Any other thoughts or questions that people have before we move into this last step? Right. So this last thing that I wanted to touch on is how to translate your Tau Beta Sigma experience into your resume. Um, because I joined TBS because I loved band and I wanted to give back to my band program. But I was not a music major or anything like that. So I never really thought of TBS as being connected to my career journey. But then TBS ended up being the most important part of my career journey because I kind of understood the power of the growth and development that I had as a result of my membership in TBS, as a result of the different offices that I had, the different career and leadership skills that I developed. For a lot of people, you may not think that TBS is going to be really relevant in your career unless you're going into music or music education, music advocacy. But TBS is relevant to anyone's career journey. And so taking steps to identify that, I feel like is a really important reflective practice to have. And so whenever you're thinking about how to talk about TBS in your personal mission statement, in your elevator pitch, etc. The first step, obviously, is to reflect and think about the different things that you've done, the accomplishments you've had, the different roles that you've had, the different actions that you've taken, like programs and events that you've planned. Um, the different leadership roles that you've had, and then taking stock of the different skills that you've developed from all of these different areas. There's a lot of, I mean, it's really well documented. There's a lot of skills that employers are specifically looking for, whether it be teamwork, leadership, problem solving, communication. And so you've likely developed a lot of these skills in some kind of way that's really demonstratable through your experience in TBS. So, identifying the different experiences that you've had in the sorority and how they match up to different skills that people want. They want to make sure that you have. And then, once you've done that reflective work, being able to develop a list of stories that match an experience that you've had in TBS or any other experience that you've had. It doesn't necessarily just have to be TBS, but developing a list of stories where you can match an experience with a skill. And there's a really helpful framework called the STAR method that I know Lynetta is going to be talking about a little bit more in the next session about interviews. Um, but this is a helpful framework for being able to frame your story so that you're properly setting up your experience and then your result that you want to make sure you're getting across, like a specific skill that you want to make sure you're demonstrating. And so I have, another resource, how to showcase your leadership experiences on a resume specifically, but you can parse this out to other factors of your career journey, like cover letters and things of that nature. So Okay, so those were the topics that I had around personal branding. So kind of having a solid understanding of who you are and being able to articulate that. Um, really looking at your online identity and making sure that you're managing that well. And then um, elevator pitches to be able to articulate um, to people as you are building your network, who you are and kind of what you're looking for. And then finally, being able to translate the different experiences that you've had into your resume, elevator pitches, cover letters, things of that nature. These are all really important factors that help you build your personal brand. I hope that this session, you got some insights and takeaways out of this. Um, I do want to provide that space in case anyone has any questions that have come up or questions that they have at this moment. When facilitating, always wait 10 seconds for people to collect their thoughts. So um, um, I did want to share the QR code with the resource folder so I can mention throughout a lot of different resources that you can use to help put some of these concepts I've been talking about into action. So feel free to scan this QR code. Allison, I'm hoping to be able to share this link with any kind of follow-up with this workshop.
Perfect. So while people are giving a scan of the QR code, I want to say thank you to Caleb for this really engaging presentation. I think there's so much to take away from it, and even more now that we have the resource folder to link to.